Alright, from fans, episode 7, This Fragile Lives, is not just another episode in this twisted show. It's an absolute heartbreak that changes everything. From that tense clinic scene straight through one of the most devastating endings we have seen yet, this episode shows how quickly things can spiral out of control. Since the beginning of the season, we have seen how the show wants to break our hope. Well, the town is about to remind us exactly why hope is such a dangerous thing here. Whether it's Fatima's terrifying pregnancy, Randall ongoing cicada trauma, or Boyd trying to maintain control, this episode confirms that in From, their worst enemy is not always the monsters in the woods, it's their own mind. And we also need to talk about Tilly, because that final scene is not just shocking, it's the town showing us that even the kindest, purest souls are not safe from its corruption. Let's break down how we got here and why this episode might be one of the most important yet. Welcome to this video, my name is Christian from Beam Premiere. And let's break down this emotional roller coaster of an episode. Welcome and let's begin.
What have I done?
So let's start with that clinic scene because holy moly, From doesn't waste any time going back into the horror. We got Fatima sitting there while Chrissy tries to explain this whole thing as a psychosomatic pregnancy. So here's the thing, when they bring up comparing to something that they could not see, she's foreshadowing something much darker.
Angry all the time.
The fear in her eyes when she says, I want to go home. She knows something's wrong. She can feel whatever's inside her getting stronger, changing her. So when a character says in a way that they're scared of themselves, we should properly listen. So meanwhile, Boyd and Christy are having their own intense showdown. When Boyd snaps, do your F job and figure it out. It's not just about Fatima anymore. It's about how powerless everyone feels. Even Boyd, who has suffered so much and also who's seen it all, is starting to crack under all this pressure. I mean, he lost Father Catherine, his wife, and then Tian Shen. But here's what caught my attention. Notice how nobody's talking about the rotten food Fatima's been craving. They're all focused on what they cannot see on the ultrasound, but maybe they should be asking why the town is making her crave this food. I feel like Christy's not doing her job in this episode. I don't know why. Something that I noticed is so weird. Remember, this is not just about Fatima anymore. It's about how the town injects everything it touches, one bite at a time. Again, remember how season 3 started with hope breaking? Now we see it episode by episode. And as we move into episode 10, it's getting destroyed even more. I mean, this scene From is a way of saying hope in this town, think again. And going from the mention of something different in the woods, this is just the beginning of this episode descent and the season into darkness. Now, speaking of evolution and change, we need to talk about that scene between Donna and Boyd, because it shows how even the strongest alliance in this town can crack under pressure. Remember when these two promised to always discuss and talk about things? Well, that promise is being put to the test when Donna suggests that Fatima and Ellis cannot stay at Colony House anymore. I understood that this is not just about safety, it's about also not having again what happened with Abby. Finally, they were going back to other events that happened. You know, she says, I have to think about everyone in that house. And you can feel the weight of those words. I mean, this is Donna, who always been there for Boyd, essentially telling him that his son and daughter-in-law are too dangerous to shelter. Because if Fatima goes in that direction, she doesn't want anyone to suffer and again, keep everyone safe. And Boyd's reaction, because he thought about Abby, I imagine, that quiet okay, it speaks volumes. Watch that scene again, the way he tries to brush it off with the following.
You're not wrong. Okay, you and me, we're okay.
But you can see how his face tells a different story. This is the same Boyd that told Acosta that everything in this town is his business. Now being told of this is really interesting. I mean, this tension between Boyd and Donna is not happening in a vacuum either. It's showing what's happening throughout the town. Relationships being tested, trust being broken, just like Henry questioning his relationship with Victor, like Ellis trying to help Fatima. The town is attacking every connection these people have. And here's a real huge part. Both Boyd and Donna are right. Boyd needs to protect his family and Donna needs to protect her people. The town's forcing impossible choices on everyone, including them. And even the strongest relationships are not immune to this. When Boyd suggests putting them in the sheriff's station, it's not just about finding an alternative or fighting the darkness. It's more about losing another piece of his authority and his family. And it goes back to his ability to keep his people safe. So speaking about Tabitha, remember Tabitha saw that memory in the previous episode? Well, this episode we have this expedition with Jade and Ethan, and Jim is obviously here because as we remember, he was getting all the food. But this is giving us some major clues. While everyone else is dealing with immediate threats, this crew is out there digging out the past. When Tabitha finds those same stones from her childhood dreams, that's huge. She's not just connecting dots, she's giving us clues. Like Miranda, she was marked from this place long before she got here. When she says,
"It's a random nightmare, Jim. This was a dream I had, over and over again."
It's like she's piecing together a puzzle, the town scattered across time, her childhood dreams, Miranda's painting, and now these stones. They're all part of something bigger that we're just starting to see. But it's Jade who drops the real reality here. If fate exists, he says, you never really have a chance. I mean, think about that for a second. If Tabitha was in this place in her dream as a kid, if she was chosen like Miranda, what does that mean for everyone else? Are any of them really here by accident? Remember how Jim always brings another way of seeing things, but he cannot even deny the evidence anymore. His wife saw this exact place in her dreams decades ago. Again, if this all ties back to what's happening with Fatima in a twisted way, if some people are chosen by the town, if they're marked for this place before they even arrive, what exactly is this town choosing them for? Because after watching what just happened with Telly, after seeing what Fatima's becoming, maybe being chosen is not the blessing that Miranda thought it was. Are they chosen for horrible things? I mean, think about it. If Fatima is A, turning into a monster, or B, whatever's inside her is doing all of these things, she is chosen for something horrible. And while our group is out there discovering these connections to the past, everything's falling apart back in town. It's like From is showing us both ends of the puzzle at once, the why and the what now, and neither answer is looking too good for our characters. Now, speaking of darkness, let's talk about Victor because his storyline is mirroring Fatima in the most disturbing way. So here's Victor obsessing over that dummy Jasper, convinced it holds all the answers, while his dad Henry watched helplessly. Sound familiar? It's exactly what's happening with Ellis and Fatima, Boyd and Ellis, and now Henry and Victor. This painful dance of watching someone you love spiral while feeling completely powerless to help. And then we get that gut punch of a confession later at the bar between Henry and Donna. It was easier when I thought he was dead. But here's where From really twists the knife. The show says it was all about breaking Boyd. Well, I feel it's doing it to everyone else. So while Henry's struggling with these horrible thoughts about his son, Victor is going deeper into his obsession with Jasper. He's convinced the dummy holds the key to answers, maybe even escaping. But it's clear that his grip on reality is cloudy. "You need to talk to me." It's heartbreaking. Victor's not just searching for answers in that dummy. He's searching for a connection to his past, to all that he lost, but why? And that's the tragic irony of the storyline. Henry's finally here, ready to reconnect with his son, but the Victor he knew is gone, replaced by this broken, haunted man. They're both trapped in their own pain, unable to bridge the gap that this town has created between them. It's a cruel twist of fate, which is something both characters have to deal with. Even the scene in Victor's room, it's not just about that Jasper, it's also about how fractured Victor's mental state is right now. Jasper sitting there, it all shows the chaos inside Victor's mind. And the way that Victor storms off, yelling, "I cannot do this here." This connects to the reason why he goes to Sarah's house. Remember, he saw it in the basement, so this is why. Now, this need for answers is intriguing, but that feeling of losing your grip is not unique to Henry or Victor. It's like a virus spreading through Fromville, infecting everyone it touched. And speaking of losing your mind, let's talk about Kenny and Acosta conversation in the diner, because it shows the motive of breaking the characters. Kenny's answering all her questions about how everyone shows up thinking that they will be the one to figure it all out. You adapt or you lose your mind. If that is not the perfect summary of what's happening to Fatima right now. But here's a real interesting point. Kenny tells her how he lost both of his parents here, right after we watch his mom, Tianchen, get killed by those monsters. And Acosta, she's playing it tough, refusing to get comfortable. But notice how the U-box starts playing right when she starts to be at her most strong. Classic From move, right? The town loves to remind them who's really in charge. Right when you think you gotta figure it out. Kenny explained how they found the talisman, how people used to hide as best they could. And I think this is how the town is showing us that rules can change, that what worked yesterday might not work tomorrow. I mean, think about that in this context. With everything else that's happening in this episode, the town is not just breaking its residents anymore. It's evolving its methods, and that should terrify everyone. The irony of this scene is a song. The 5 stair steps, Oh Child.
Ooh, child, things will get brighter. Then bring it down hard.
So you know that this song is hopeful about how things are gonna get easier and brighter. The timing cannot be more cruel, because here's Kenny trying to explain to her how you either adapt or you lose your mind. Well, this song promised someday, yeah, we'll put it together and we'll get it undone. The town basically mocking them is like saying, there's no someday in this town, no magical moment when things get easier or brighter. Even that line, will walk in the rays of a beautiful sun. This hits different when you remember they're trapped in a place when even daylight doesn't mean safety. This musical moment connects beautifully to everything else happening in this episode. While this song playing about things getting better, we got a lot of things falling apart. It's from way of saying, oh, you want to hope? Here's what happens to hope in this town. Because the song promised that you just wait and see how things are gonna be becomes almost dangerous in this context. Waiting to see how things are gonna be usually means waiting for them to get worse. I mean, we can see it in Telly about that brighter future the song promised. All of this builds up to that confrontation between Boyd and Acosta at the sheriff's station when Acosta calls Boyd up for playing make-believe in his hand-me-down blazer. She doesn't realize the irony, because we know the people who refuse to adapt, who hold to their old identities, they're usually the ones who break first. And speaking of breaking, that moment when Boyd gives Acosta her gun but keeps the bullet, it's like a motif of what's happening with Fatima. Sometimes having only part of what you need is worse than having nothing at all. The town's playing the long game here, and nobody's winning. This episode is going deep, and we need to talk about this throwaway detail that's actually huge. When we have Julie and Randall, and they go into this walk, he says he's looking for mushrooms. Now, this is not just some random trip. There's an intention here. The guy who's been haunted by cicada visions, who shared that trauma with Julie and Marielle, is looking for these mushrooms for a reason. Think about it. These mushrooms are known for their medical properties, but in some cultures, they're also used for their psychoactive effects. Is Randall trying to self-medicate? Is he hoping these mushrooms might help him understand or cope with whatever happened to them? This connects directly to Ellis as he desperately searched in that medicine cabinet. Different methods, the same desperate attempt to find relief from the town's pain and darkness. Going back to Randall and Julie, it's interesting how the scene happens right before they're drawn to those ruins. And from mental state and perception are everything. Could Randall be looking for these mushrooms for either enhance or block his connection to whatever's calling them? Because of everything that we have seen in this episode, maybe being more tuned in is not such a good thing. Remember what Kenny said about adapting or losing your mind? Well, maybe Randall trying to find a third option, one that might help him understand what the town did to them without completely breaking him in the process. Now, this innocent driving lesson takes a seriously dark turn. At first, it's almost sweet, right? Randall teaching Julie to drive, sharing those vulnerable moments. It's like watching two people try to grab a slice of a normal life in this nightmare of a town. But From doesn't do normal, like I always say. Just when you think we're getting a breather, those cicadas show up again. So remember what Randall told Boyd earlier in the season while seeing what he saw about how death is not the worst thing that can happen here. Well, we're seeing that trauma play out in real time. And Julie's reaction, that's not just concern for Randall. She's starting to realize it and feel it too. The town's getting to both of their heads. Julie insists she can feel something there, despite Randall trying to deny his own connection to it. Here's what's fascinating. Both of them were part of that shared trauma with Marielle. Whatever happened to them in that experience, it seemed to have left them more sensitive to the town's pull. It's like they're connected to a frequency most people cannot hear or feel. And even think about the timing too. Right after Randall's cicada episode, right when he's at his most vulnerable, that's when they find these ruins. Bram doesn't do coincidence like I always say, and notice how Randall, who's been trying to act tough all episode, suddenly cannot get away fast enough. He knows deep down, he knows there's something about that place that connects to whatever horror they have experienced together. This ties back to what Jade said about being chosen. If Tabatha was marked for this place through her childhood dreams, could Randall, Julie, and Mariel have been marked by their shared trauma? Are these ruins calling them specifically because of what they went through? And let's not forget, while they're discovering these ruins, Elgin finding that hidden root cellar. Two different groups, two different locations, both seem to be uncovering pieces of the town past at exactly the same day. Bram is building towards something here, and these ruins might be a bigger piece of the puzzle than we realize. But everything's falling apart, and one of those things is Ellis' breakdown at the clinic, because holy moly, what a performance. When he's talking about all that medicine cabinet, he's looking for something to help Fatima, and it's heartbreaking. He says,
Which nightmare am I supposed to be afraid of? Which?
and by the way, the acting of Ellis, or the actor, is just incredible in the scene. And the answer to what he's supposed to be afraid of is all of them, Ellis. All of them. And if you think about it, this all connects back to what Kenny was saying about adapting or losing your mind. We're watching these characters try everything they can think of. Randall trying to outrun his trauma, Ellis trying to medicate away Fatima's condition, Victor searching for answers in that Jasper, but the town is reminding them there's no escaping what he has planned. Oh boy. And while all of this is happening, we got Tilly in the background delivering this beautiful, tragic speech about life being the beginning of some grand adventure. Oh, from "You're such a cruel town" and the writers, "You're setting us up for what's coming next." One of those sentences that is so real, and it's a concept of how time passes so quickly. I see it every day with my family and with my mom and my dad. Every time I notice another line on their faces or catch them sharing a quiet moment, it hits me that these are the days we will look back on. It's such a reminder to pause, to enjoy and take it all in. These ordinary days that are quickly slipping by. We spend so much time chasing future moments or milestones, even for me when I do videos, like I want the videos to have views and so on, but it's about those moments, everyday scenes that just capture what matters most, and it's our family and enjoying a show that is so beautiful. Anyways, I wanted to share something personal because this scene with Tilly about life and death really struck me. Is those moments when a character feels and fades the end with a sense of peace and acceptance, and that makes me think about what matters most. Watching Tilly speak about living fully, even as she faces something as scary as her own mortality. Even at the end, she's such a nice lady that she tells Fatima, run. And speaking of what comes next, let's talk about that ending, because From just delivered one of his most brutal gut punches endings yet. So remember how Tilly was just giving Ellis that beautiful speech again about enjoying every moment, about not grieving the living. The town timing is just cruel, making her this beacon of hope right before, well, you know, it's all about how we look at Fatima, and in that moment where she looks at Fatima in that final scene, "You're not alone," Tilly says to her. And that's a terrifying part. Whatever's inside Fatima, whatever's making her crave that rotten food, is not just affecting her anymore, it's turning her into something else. And let's not forget Ellis finding Tilly dead and Fatima there. So remember what he said earlier about not knowing which nightmare to be afraid of. Well, the town just answered in the most devastating way possible. It's not just about what's happening to Fatima anymore. It's about what she might do to others. So we need to zoom out and we need to talk about this pattern that's emerging. 3 times now we have heard characters mention something different out there in the woods. The first is when we have Kenny and Jade in the log, now Jim, and when Kenny told Boyd, all describing something that doesn't sound like our regular monsters. And From when something gets mentioned a few times, that's not a coincidence. I mean, think about it. We got our normal monsters in town with their routines that Randall described so well, but out here something else is walking around in the darkness, maybe connecting to what Martin said about the creatures being just the tip of the spear.
There's darkness in the forest. Nightmares you can't even begin to imagine. Just the tip of the spear.
This connects directly to what we're seeing with Fatima too. If the monsters in town are just the beginning, if there's something worse out there in the woods, could that be what's really affecting her? Remember how the town monsters have routines Randall talked about? Well, whatever's happening to Fatima feels a lot more primal, more like whatever's in those woods. And if the regular monsters are just tip of the spear, what the hell is the rest of it? Now let's focus on something that we have not talked about yet that sends Elgin on this journey. This is not the first time that From has played with the idea of objects leading characters places. We had the drawings, we had Tabitha's bracelet, we have the bottle trays, Victor's drawings, and so on. And now this mysterious camera. But here's what's different. This time it's technology doing the guiding. And that root cellar Elgin finds is not just any hidden space. He discovers what looks like someone's final resting place. Another piece of this town bloody history we're just now finding. The kimono lady is literally making Elgin dig deeper, both physically and metaphorically, into the town's secrets. This ties into what's happening out in those woods with Tabitha's group. Both storylines are about discovering the past, while Tabitha is finding structures. Elgin is stumbling onto something that feels more accidental, like he's found something the town don't want anyone to find. So we have seen the root cellar before, back when Boyd saw the ballet dancer, and also in the memory of Victor. So this location is important, but why? And he says this is where it's going to happen, but what's going to happen and how is it connected to Fatima going by the image? Now that's the whole episode, a breakdown of it. Now let's talk about what's coming next, because episode 8 looks like it's about to take all this drama and crank it up to 11. The title is Thresholds, and the synopsis is the following. Accusations start flying and truth come to light in the aftermath of a tragedy. Victor struggles to recover long-buried memories about the town past. Julie and Ethan search for answers about the mysterious ruins in the woods. So that image that we have of Julie and Ethan in those ruins is not a coincidence that she's drawn to that location after everything that's happened. Remember how Julie felt something at those ruins? Now we can see why she is going back there again. And we can see how she's going to go back there. And speaking of pieces coming together, we got accusations flying and truth come to light. After what happened with Tilly, the town is about to show us how quickly fear can turn neighbors against each other. This is the first time someone dies, so it's like investigating who did it. So I'm looking forward to this. Will they blame Fatima, maybe Ellis or Sarah or someone else? Or is this going to create something bigger? Meanwhile, Victor is still trying to dig up those buried memories, but after everything we have seen in this episode, maybe some memories are buried for a reason. The town's been playing a long game, and from Tabitha's childhood dreams to Victor's past, from Julie's trauma to Fatima's transformation, it's all connected. And episode 8 looks ready to start revealing just how deep those connections go. After losing someone as pure as Tilly, after watching Fatima's devastating transformation, nobody's going to feel safe anymore. And maybe that's exactly what the town wants. Because in From, sometimes the worst monsters are not the ones in the woods. Maybe they're the ones the town creates from within. So I want us to discuss something before I let you go, and that is how this show is filled with so supernatural horror and dark mysteries, but at its core, it's a show about how a real human experience happened. Hope, love, death. Those are themes that we all connect deeply, and they make the characters so relatable. In every struggle they face, we see a part of ourselves. In these moments, the show touches on things we all understand, and that's what makes From more than just a horror story. It's a reflection of our own lives and emotions. Now, as we move from episode 8 into 9, we have information as well as how we move into episode 10. So spoiler alert for episode 9 and 10. So the synopsis for episode 9 is the following, and that is Revelation chapter 1. So tensions are at an all-time high as the town residents learn that one of their own has gone missing. And episode 10, which is Revelation chapter 2, is the following. Boyd is pushed to his limit as time begins to run out for someone he loves. Randall is haunted by his trauma, and Victor reveals a hard truth. The Tabatha unlikely journey takes a shocking turn. So that's all the information that we have going into episode 8, 9, and then 10. I cannot believe we're only 3 weeks until season 3 is over. Now, if you have watched until the end, I am really grateful. That means a lot. And so something quick about the channel, some updates. I'm gonna go ahead and start breaking down Silo season 2 starting November 14 as well until March, which is gonna be moving from Silo then to Severance, which is awesome. I was actually gonna take vacation. I think that's not gonna happen anymore because I just want to continue to do videos and breakdowns for all of you. So that's the quick update on the channel. My name is Christian from the Premiere, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye, everyone.